right. All right, as we begin with a gentle supported inversion, what I want you to consider is to have your pelvis elevated, maybe at a wall. I'm going to demonstrate with a wall, but you could also be in the middle of the room, right? Or the middle of your mat or wherever you are without having that wall pressure. It's up to you. The wall makes it a little more relaxing, I think, for your whole constitution, but you get to decide. So what you'll need is a blanket folded in either a quarter fold, right? Or you could go into just a single. This would probably still be a little bit of extra folding. I guess I was watching something about blanket folding the other day, and I think I have to study that a little bit more to have it perfect for you all. But you want to have it in a low height, so when you go upside down, all that circulation can flow, that venous return, right, towards the heart. Okay, so what's good for the heart's good for the brain. So we want to focus on that in the beginning. So if you have a belt, you can buckle it up and just put it off to the side yard. If you have a sandbag or a bag of weight, have that, blocks, ball. And then let's come up to our wall space or our bolster, and we're going to be on the edge of it. Now, if you're in the middle of the room doing the lift off on the bolster, you don't really need to be on the edge of the bolster. You just sit in the center and carefully lower back and let the legs lift up. But the ideal is to make this, as we roll to let the legs elevate, this supported inversion, and I can feel it pretty quickly in my, well, today I could feel my digestion. I could feel everything kind of just moving the other direction, right? The opposite of stagnation. So yeah, we want to move away from kind of stagnation, kind of intonation in the body. It's a great one for getting some flow inwards. So if I have my legs elevated, I will place a sandbag across the feet. Now to apply that support, you're going to bend through the legs, set the sand across the feet, have a little spacing between them. Okay, enough that you can feature easily reaching the tailbone down. Kind of notice how two legs, how your connection is into your tailbone, which brings a complete kind of order of balancing in the core. You can also place your hands on your belly, on your rib cage. You could place an eye pillow on in this entry pose. But as the spine starts to get a little bit more flexibility, we're able to work with flexibility of the spine, chest opening, refreshing the legs and the feet, energizing the flow of lymph, reversing the gravitational pull in the muscles, in the organs. Let's settle into this bonus beginning. Arms can relax out into goalpost position, and just settling back, your eyes resting, and that felt sense of the facial muscles relaxing. It might feel like it pulls the face up a little bit, right? Because if I'm standing and gravity has me, it's that prolapse. So this is the opposite of prolapse, opposite of stagnation. So feeling where your neck is comfortable. Maybe you need more height under your head. Maybe you have to kind of curl the blanket so it's at that cervical kind of spout, right, from the brain. If you think of the brain, and then the cervical vertebrae is kind of the spout down into the body. Receiving your breath. And centering on the out breath. You're feeling where the ribs not only try to go outwards, but this one might be different than what you expect with a chest opener. I think it's, I generally feel like it's interesting that it is considered a gentle back bend chest opener plus inversion. The back line of the body extends. But if anything feels like it's gripping up more, then softening your approach. Maybe that means you are with legs up without anything under your pelvis or just a blanket. You can always reset if it's shaky. Just receive a few more moments of opening the chest, arching into the spine, all the way up through the throat. Feeling what it's like to reverse the flow, gravitational flow in your body. There must be somewhere it feels like it revitalizes. So if it's not that for you in this pose, this would be a moment. If you're not at the wall, maybe you put your legs up on a chair or something so you can let that flow reverse back to the heart and the brain. Shift the tone in the skin. Okay, and a few more moments. Now the inversion is great for abdominal organ motion because as I in-breath, my abdominal organs, they actually push down my diaphragm every time I'm breathing, right? So it's a strengthening for the core. Sometimes it can be a little upsetting, right, for the digestive tract to kind of work its way this direction before we shift it the other. So it might be a challenge, but it's all in the event of improving circulation. It's all for the good. It's got a good cause directionally. So last few moments with the abdominal organs pushing onto the diaphragm. As you inhale, there's resistance, so the breath is slower. And as you out breath, probably it feels a little faster than when you're standing upright. Okay, now if you've got sand on the feet, you're just going to shift the legs a little bit away from the wall, and we're going to remove the sand. So that could be bend the knees, carefully drop it off overhead. Just don't let the sand drop on your hands, or you could lift up your hands to take the sand off, and then move your legs a little bit outwards. Now, let's say you're in the middle of the room, you might use a belt, right? So it's not as challenging to keep them out and supported, but move them out so there's just a reach of the leg bones to rest into the back of the hip sockets so the feet don't have any pressure on. They might get tingly, right? Because there's almost no blood pressure in the feet at this point, right? So we're definitely shifting up the circulation to our heart, settling. And now with the feet in that motion out, slide the soles of the feet together. Knees are actually reaching out as well. And you can just let gravity have this one as well. Generally, I'll tend to push into my legs with my hands to get more stretch, but I like to just see what gravity does with the how my muscles respond to the shape that I'm in, right? That's all what I think yoga is about as far as the physical practice, is feel the muscle response. So many responses internally in the shape, right? From pose to pose, it's a whole cycle of news in the body that you're kind of informing the sensations, the shifts. Okay, now with the pelvis, the feeling of the hips, the back of the pelvis out to the knees, we're going to reset into this one, but we're going to move away from the wall. Okay, so kind of reset this one. So notice, okay, the knees are out. We're going to bring the knees to center in. I like to just scoot back. So I just kind of rock. I push my blanket way back, and then I shift back off the wall. You might have to reset your shirt. Okay. And then I'll take the soles of the feet together, the knees out in reclining cobbler pose. It tends to be kind of a wobbler cobbler because I might be shifting a little side to side. Windshield wiper, that's fine. But feel where the setting is of your feet. I love to have the kind of the roots of the toes get a little stretch at the wall. This is one of my faves. And then take a sandbag, place it from the heart to the belly or across the ribs, completely up to you. Whichever feels like it could use some contact and support. So let's say abdominally, you need to kind of let that flatten and release, or maybe it's the ribs that are kind of feeling impulsive or tightening up. So finding the sand support to ground you and bring stretch to the core of the body. Take a few moments here. Hands could be down by the sides. They could be also back out into the goalpost position. Blanket is under your head. You can make it a little bit higher at this point. You could keep it low. Just don't let the blanket go under your neck or your shoulders, just under your head. Take just a few moments pausing, starting to bring energy into the hips, the lower extremities. Okay, now bridge pose, we do bridge connection into the midsection as whole core kind of bridge, right? The connecting of the lower extremities to the upper, okay? So let's start to shift our knees to point up, and I would recommend just move the sand to the side and take a lift with the hips. So my feet are at the wall or a chair. If you have a chair, then be aware that you don't want to be kicking the chair over, right? You could also be like on an ottoman or something that helps you push into it and lift up. I love the wall for this. So I feel the arch of my lumbar. I can slide my hands under. There's enough arch there. And then when I lift up my hips, push into my feet, I'm going to lift up just the right amount for my back muscles. I'm not going to be forcing any pressure on my hands, but as I move my arms back overhead, feel that you push into your feet and then lower the spine down. Now, yes, you could have your feet on a bolster to do this. That's perfectly fine. Now, I'm going to do this without the ball center of the knees, but some of us might prefer adding a ball center of the knees, and then just feel if that's different for the response in your back. It could be different. It could feel like, oh, now I have this cohesive layer of support in my hips, okay? So ball between the knees or no ball, but be sure that you can motion your shoulder joints, your arms down as you lower down the hips, and then feel that elevation as you reach the hips up. This is a variation of a shoulder stand. So the idea is to massage into the shoulders. Feels kind of good. Let's just do a couple more at the most. If you feel like you're worked out with it and you want to take a breather, you can always just let the feet step up on the bolster or the wall as they are. Okay. All right, now let's shift our body a little bit further away from the wall. So you're going to move your blanket back, and I want you to have such close connection to the wall that it's going to support your feet, okay, to push into. So you'll take a block or two, right? If you like two, one side to side, so you have more base foundation for the pelvis, you could use two side to side here. I would just put them on the sides of my hips to start, walk my feet up on the bolster, lift the hips up, and then slide the blocks together. Now the blocks could be lower. They could be just one across the pelvis. And then I center my feet pushing to the wall. Okay. I'm a huge fan of this version of extended bridge pose. Love it because the feet at the wall. Okay, so when I feel this reach of my core band right into the rib intersection, I can add sand here on the tops of the thighs. I can go minus sand, let my arms sweep down by the sides. Feel the shoulders. Instead of rolling in, I'm trying to open the palms, open the arms, and roll my shoulders down and in towards the spine. Kind of visualize if you were trying to get the shoulders to squeeze in towards the spine. So it might feel like kind of these robot arms for a few moments for you to adapt. And then once your heart adapts to the circulation, of course you could add sand to the front body, but it's fine if you don't, right? The ideal reach of the legs is to let the arms relax, the feet touch to the wall, or if you're on the bolster without the wall, that's fine. And center the rib motion. Take some moments here, noticing if you're exerting energy. If you're not with your full foot at the wall, if you're using the wall, you will end up exerting more energy than necessary. So part of it is to set up the pose. So you want it's how you arrange your body in the shapes, that's the work, right? Arrange the body and circulation will come, right? You'll feel support. Chest is wide. If you can find something that's appealing to you in the position, right? A circulation response in the legs, a reach from the bones of the pelvis into the hip bones, finding that slight amount of resistance with the feet touching the wall, and just a little bit of alignment, refinement. So I'm so close to the wall, I do feel like I'm pushing a little bit into it, but not so much that I'm tightening up my facial muscles or my lower back. Take about 2 more rounds of breath. Feel the shoulders back. The chest is open. Breathe. You know, if you're at the wall, push the right foot a little bit deeper into the wall. So press, press, press. And then the left foot. So you're activating one side to the next. Okay, relax the pressure. And then walk the feet to the bolster. Knees point up. And then you're going to scoop the tailbone under just a little bit to move the blocks out. And once those blocks go away, I want you to add a ball to the sacrum, so the base of the spine. Now let's think it could be tailbone. If you've got a ball that's, you know, pretty good size, it could be 5-inch around, it could be 7, it doesn't have to be that big. But I have the ball at the base, so now I come into this kind of an interesting, from the pressure of the blocks, now it's like really rounded. So just let the hips move side to side, so like you're wagging your tail. Get a feel of pelvi motion. Okay, and then as you feel that reach, the front space of the core might feel a little bit lost in motion. Like how do I stay strong, right? Keeping that force of motion, not just at the back of your pelvis, but also the front, right? There's movement here too. Okay, now move the ball, purposely move it with your hand over to the left rear. So I've got the ball just under the left glute. We're going to go across the glute zone. So you're going to push into the ball and go across. Okay, so centering, pressure, and movement on that ball. Okay, you can let the weight lean into it, right? You can feel where you go to the edge of the hip, like between the glute zone and the hip bone. And then you try to push the hip over to the left and the ball's going to go to the glute central. Okay, so when you're on your back, you do want to get a feel that you're going across, right? The glutes pattern. So all the way across. And it's all about weight, right? And movement and balance. I guess balance isn't a key for this one, is it? It's not like you want to balance and kick your feet up in the air. You wanna work on creating heat into the glute, because we're gonna give it a big glute and hip stretch. So heat into the glute. Okay. Now, when we come back through central, just lower down to your right rear, tip the knees to the right, bring the knees up center, take the ball out, and then sneak it over to the right rear. Okay, my knees just swerve left, and then my hope is that I can just kind of mount up on the ball, and I don't have to tighten my glutes to get there. I think that's a secret motion. I just kind of glide up onto it, my knees going to the right, and then there's a ball. And it has a purpose, right, to help circulation into this connective tissue. So feeling where the feet touch the bolster, I'm a fan of the feet on something, so the weight kind of drops back into the ball. Okay, I like feet up on something to do the rolling work. Kind of anywhere to roll, I like the feet lifted, whether it's back or it's pelvis, hips. Okay, now when you're gliding across, you probably have some signature moves on each side. They're a little different. You might think you're doing exactly the same, but there's spots, that are sort of locked up and tightened up. So you want to feel that you can move your hips across. They're both united in the movement. It's not like you just say right hip only, but they're both united in a crossing into the hip tissue. Take a few moments here. If your legs are locking up, like you can feel the thigh bones kind of getting really warm or gripping up, really feel if you can let your weight just drop into that ball. Breathe, and then maybe slowly make the movements with your hips. This is just from experience of extra gripping when I don't need to. I notice that sometimes I tighten up my thigh muscle, contract to get the hip to move. So just find what you can do that's just less tension, right? What's necessary for you to get the movement in the hip. Okay, now that they're both kind of warmed a little bit, lower down to the left rear, move the ball out from the right side, and then let's take a little windshield wiper here. So knees side to side. You can do this without the bolster. I'm kind of a fan of this without my bolster as well. So I'm going to just use my feet to maneuver the bolster to the right side of my mat, and then just windshield wiper without. Okay, kind of feel, is it okay in your knees? Do you walk your feet closer to your seat? Do you move them down or a little bit wider? Kind of find what windshield wiper version works for you. Okay, kind of load the pelvis with the movement. This area can take it, right? Sometimes our knee joints can't. So we don't want our feet too far away. We want to load the weight in the pelvis. Okay, now bring the knees back through to center. Okay, push into both feet. They could be on hips distance or a little wider. The focus would be that I push into my feet and then I lift up my rear and move it to the left. So it's a small movement. So feet, hips move to the left. Right leg is bending, it relaxes down on the side of the leg, and then I just swing the left leg over to the bolster. Okay, I try to take it slow with the directions in my knees. Yeah, I'm a fan of doing things that are really comfy for your knee if possible. So you're going to have that left leg close to the bolster, if not on it. And if it doesn't center on the bolster, just get a blanket or another cushion under your left knee, or maybe even something close by like a block. Okay, it might look like that's awfully uncomfortable, but if I feel like it's easier on my hip, I mean, my eye sees that it's a block, but it feels pretty good. Okay, so you can use padding, ball to the tailbone area, and then maybe add a sandbag here on the outer left thigh. If that's going to cause a little bit of extra tension in you, then don't, right? So you might even find things, let's say you have a sandbag, but it's just feeling heavy some days for class. You can, like I made a lighter one the other day and I thought that was nice. It's probably 7 pounds, just easier to drag around. You could get a bag of rice, put it in a pillowcase, things like that can be helpful. And it works. So left arm is open. I got a sandbag right now on my outer left hip. I'm going to kind of assess where it feels most supportive for the waist stretching. So you might want to just put it up high on the hip. You might have it so it centers down towards the knee. And then the right hand rests anywhere. It could be on the floor, it could be on your core. Feel the revolved core pose. A really great one for digestion, for spine flexibility, chest, shoulder flexibility. All besides just the hip stuff, right? So as you repeat your breath, notice if there's something you could release a bit here. If the stretch is pretty intense on your hip, you might even do a little bit, kind of make it subdued, like push your hand onto the side corner of the bolster, the short end, and move the bolster a little bit down, lower it down the side of your mat so it's not so hiked up on the hip. You could do that as well and see if that feels different on your hip. You can also pull and move it higher. Take a few more moments. Feel where the lower levers, the legs are bending. And the waist is rotating. And just feel abdominally that motion through the rib cage, openness through the heart. Make a little transition space between the sides, right? So a transition space might be moving the props that are touching on you, okay? One is under you. Okay, now as you shift, the one that's under the leg on that right side, you're going to move off that bolster. And then I like to kind of feel just the really basic nature of the movement of my pelvis. So I don't like make quick moves, just feel my feet on the floor, move my hips to the right, take the bolster, move it to the left, and then I get ready to swing my leg over. Okay, now, just get a feel when you're reaching across and you can feel the movement of your hips. So some people will like lean into the left hip and then swing the leg over. This is probably the most classic thing you'll see. And that kind of moves away from opening the chest and the ribs. So you might find, okay, you got an upper and lower half, right? So if you can feel your feet on the ground and you move your hips to the right, push your feet, move your hips right. Left leg relaxes, right leg swings over to the bolster. And then we can add the ball. The ball is kind of not a big piece of this, is it? It's just an anchor for the pelvis. It's nothing more than that. But if you want to use the ball like under your right upper back, I mean, some people put the ball under their, just kind of roll it under the upper right shoulder area. And that can feel nice to kind of massage your back. So you can work with other ideas there with the ball. But if it's quite kind of spiky and sensation for the hip to cross over to the left this way, take it slow. Maybe you don't use a sandbag. Maybe you start with it and then you notice, the details are too much. So it doesn't have to be overly intense to receive benefit, right? It's definitely an interesting topic. So, right, remember, tightness can be stretched and tension, it can't be, right? It has to feel safe to release, has to be safe to release tension and support it. So feel how the shoulder on that right side centers down. Feel how the chest opens. And just simply receiving your breath. Feel where there's balance. in the upper muscles, across the heart, to the front of the shoulders. If an arm gets a little tingly, like basically it goes to sleep, you want to back off and lower the elbow down, or even that arm right down by the hip or onto the ribs. You might not even feel a deepening stretch in your hip, but a deepening stretch in your arm. Yeah, so this is all about trying to find balance in the body, all the shapes that we're searching through the body spaces. And twists are, I think, fairly intense. So for me, I would normally have my blanket folded a little bit higher for the reclining twist, but I just kind of left it as I used it for the other poses. So if you notice things get tingly, maybe it's the blanket's too low. Maybe you need that height under your head to support the circulation down the spine towards the arms. Take a few more breaths here. So feeling as we get ready to shift, we're going to do quite a big shift to come towards some seated work. Okay. Whole different line of seated work variation. So it'll be nice. But when you feel this right hip reaching down, we are going to work with the right hip first when we come up. So I want you to just notice, okay, so right hip, when you're on your back, you're trying to keep it, you're not trying to push it with your hand. You could if you like to, but there is a dimension of extension in my spine because it's arching and I'm reaching my chest open. So my spinal curves are good here. So consider the spinal curves and the curves in the body when you come up to do seated work. Don't lose your curves. Okay. All right. And so I move the sand away, try to keep the curves going on here. Even if it feels like, oh no, I'm losing my balance, right? Kind of feel the energy of curves in the body. Move the ball aside. And then when you begin to come around to go up, I would say this would be a perfect moment to bring your knees to your chest. Perfect, because you're not going to shock the sacrum. You already had each side with a rotation. I'm just going to push my bolster a little bit downwards, hug my knees in, and then just rock side to side on the back of the pelvis. Rockabye pelvis. Okay, now the feet could kick back. I think it's good to have a pretty, kind of conservative variation on this. Just hug them in. Got each sides of the spine, got each sides of the hips, checking that box kind of thing. Now the knees generally are going to be apart, more comfortable for your back. I always find this interesting because many people kind of squeeze them in, but have some space so each thigh can push into each side of the digestive tract. Kind of a perfect positioning. And it might be uncomfortable to push any more than that, but just feel how it rests in. Okay. You already have the flexibility. It's just when we come up to seated work, it's a different range of tone in our core. So you can hold the backs of the legs and roll up, or you can roll to the side and then push into your hands and come on up. Okay. So let's take it. So we're going to have our bolster. I'm going to use the wall for a support to push into. But what we're going to use is a blanket folded up. And I'm going to use two because I want to be really super comfy in my hips. So I'm going to use two stacked quarter folds. Okay. So when we take the quarter fold stack, I just realized that my iPad is not plugged in and I don't want us to suddenly lose this. So I'm going to plug this back in. Can you imagine that? Nicole lost all power. Okay, so come on up to sitting on your blanket. And here's what I love doing these seated folds with the wall like this. I don't know why we don't very often, but I just enjoy this. So how far away am I from the wall? Well, it's going to be dependent, right? For each person's going to be a little different with this. So you got your short end of your bolster at the base of the wall, and you're going to kind of shove it into the wall, right? So I want to be a little closer probably. So my left leg is bending, okay? My left foot is towards the right groin. Okay, this is key. Because you can get a little more stretch when you don't have your bolster under your seat, I think. Okay. Now, if this is pushing your edge on your knee, use a ball under your knee. Don't worry about it, just use it. Okay. If it feels like, oh, that's better, I like that. Whether it was a knee thing or not, just try a ball or a block under the left knee. My right leg is out to the side. It's out to like 2 o'clock on that right side. Okay. I push into the wall with the bolster or the floor. Like if you're not using the wall, of course you're using the floor. But you can lean into it either way, whether it's the wall or the floor. And you're reaching your back line. So if this is not a good enough stretch for you, you want more, then you go back away from the wall. Back up, right? You can just go in reverse. However, you have to reset yourself. So you want to make a commitment that you're like, okay, I get this. So take a little time to make that commitment with your bolster right at the edge of the bolster, lean. Now, what if you keep leaning, you have more range than that? Go for it. Breathe. Right leg is out. Now my right leg is now getting a little bit extra stretchy on the back of the leg. So I want the inner leg to stretch. The back of the leg is very clearly stretching. So if this is too much for your right knee, just bend the knee, put the sole of the foot on the floor, and come it back to that forward fold. Okay, before we come out, I want you to just notice the back is lengthening, but doesn't mean you have to take away the arch in the back. So you might just kind of lift up through I like that idea, the cervical spout, right at the cervical spine, lifting it up. Breathe. And lower the bolster down. I don't worry if it's against the wall now, it doesn't really matter. But I want you to place your right foot on top, add a sandbag. Where should it go? Left side. Okay, that's where you're twisting away from. So I got the sandbag on the upper left thigh, and I'm just going to turn to the right, take a block behind me. So it's easier on my arm, my circulation in my shoulder, my wrist. So you could place your hand on the block with the palm open. If you've never tried that, give it a try. You can let your palm be down, but we often push into our hand a lot, just all the time, right? We're pushing, we're pulling. So you might even make this whole hand thing a little more gentle. Just relax the grip on the knee. Feel the ribs do the movement. Try to get the ribs to kind of move around the corner towards the right, twisting. Okay. And maybe even try moving your right arm to your back. Like you're going to hold your sandbag handle. Okay. Back in the day, we used to do this all the time in our in-person class. We'd grab the handle of the sandbag, but just the hand to the back could feel good. The back left lower corner. Around the kidney zones. Okay, now let's take a little bit of a side reach. So you're going to bring the left hand down on the floor or a block near you. You decide if the floor is fine, just lean into your left hand or your elbow. I think the block will be a little more comfortable. So I can bring my block up to the highest setting and then bring my elbow on it. That's nice. And then stretch the right arm over the side of the face. Reaching. Breathe. Right foot is still on the bolster. Okay, try to work on just that. How do you tolerate that motion in your hip? The inner leg is a hip muscle, right? The adductor. And now as you come out, try to lift up through the heart. Curves, curves, lift up heart. All right, and then we'll come into pigeon pose. So I've got the right leg, gonna reach it back. Okay, I'm going to show a variation if you don't practice pigeon. I'll show sage pose if you don't do pigeon. So sand goes away, right leg stretches back, and hands beside the bolster, and lower on down. Okay, so you can lower your chest on the bolster, forehead down. If you're not a big fan of that, you can push the bolster and turn it across, and put your forehead on the center of the bolster. This can feel good. And if you decide, I'm not going to do pigeon today, I'm not, but you might try this. You might slide your left thigh up on the blanket. I'm going to go to keep it with two just to feel what it's like. But generally, you would probably go down to one blanket. And then with my left hip next to the bolster, I'm going to lean into the bolster and then let my head relax down. All right, because that's going to regenerate here in the low back and the hip. So if pigeon just doesn't appeal to you, or you're like, I'll try something different today, you could do a little of each, okay? The two blankets is probably going to feel a little weird for the sleeping sage pose. But again, variety's fun. And it's safe. So if you decide I don't like it, but I'll try something else besides, you can put a block under your bolster as well on the back end and lower down like so. See, there's options. Okay. So sleeping sage or pigeon pose. They're pretty close, aren't they? After all. They're close cousins. Chest is down. Forehead down. So just feeling without putting pressure in your hands. Let your hands relax. Maybe turn the palms open. Okay, now as you come up, you're going to lower down and feel if you can move into that arch, like you would do baby back bends, tummy time poses. So move your chin up. Try to stretch through your core without forcing any weight in your hands. Elbows are great, okay, but not the hands. Okay, and then you'll just slide back. You're going to come up, arching, and then swing to that second side. So right knee points out. Left leg extends out to about 10, 11 o'clock. And you can add your sand earlier on this side. I didn't really bring that up last side. I didn't think, not too late on it. But I think for me, what I'm going to also demo on this one is I'm going to put a block under my right knee and a ball under my left, just so I have a lot of cushion. Okay, I don't want to feel like I'm having to force the joints down. Okay, because they already are improving, or circulation just changes. And not necessarily is it, it's just different than what else I do in my daily habits. So just mixing it up. So take a bolster, okay, and lean forward. Yeah, if you push back on the last pose and you're like, oh, I feel like I'm a little further away from the wall than last side, you can always kind of reset it. And it's good to be, particular about it. I know maybe you should get out like a marker pen and put it on your mat. I used to do that like with masking tape. Just seemed a little bit too much for poses, but just to get them right. So when you're leaning into it, let the inner thigh stretch on both legs. I feel it mostly in my left inner leg. My right leg, I'm trying to just get the motion into the knee. And then if it's too much on your knee joint, for instance, you don't want to keep that. You could, again, put a blocker or something under the right knee. You can move your right foot a little bit further forward. Okay, find what's easier on the knee. It's good to get circulation into the joints, but it's not good if it's feeling painful. Try to create that inner lift through the rib cage. Breathe in. And then as you exhale, lean forward. Maybe you go a little bit further in the shape, but be careful on the legs, right? So for instance, I feel when I lean down, a little bit of energy in my left knee. So what I need to do is work on more of the inner lift of my ribs. Maybe you do, right? Versus pressure on my legs. Okay. So feeling. Practice is to help us heal, right? It's a healing response practice. So take the moment as you lower down the bolster, and then I bring my left foot on top. And I love this variation, but it might feel like you need to change up your prop support. Like I'm going to put the ball under my knee. It's a little more cushiony. So when I find that lift, I still have my sand on the right thigh. I'm a big fan of the block behind, okay? So as I reach with the chest up, I turn to the left and bring the right hand to the knee and I hold. So I'm just below the knee, right on that curve, right? There's a perfect little notch there below my knee for my hand. And as you feel that rotation, notice the expanse here between the armpit area, although that's not necessarily lifting up, right? But the slant from the collarbones down towards the armpit, trying to feel the turn of the spine, right? The vine of the spine turning. And we might tend to force that twist by pulling on our leg with the right hand. So inhale, use the exhale to help you turn. Even if it's a false turn, like you're pretending you're not quite turning unless you pull with your hand. So energize that inner lift with the chest. And with the exhale, maybe you can feel your head turn. Maybe you tilt your head towards the shoulder, stretching the neck, or the other side. Yeah, we can be kind of wired, tense, very tense wiring here. So see if you can feel that inner vine from spine to chest. Feel the ribs expand. Now, when you lean to the right side, what's kind of nice here is when you have that spinal spiral. And then I just have the block on that right side. And I'm just going to use the block at the highest setting that I can put my elbow on. And then just reach the left arm up and over. Yep. And just keep it simple. So with that reach, feel the ribs turn. Feel that little bit of ascension through the rib cage. That's the main focus, right? The primary focus is the stretch in the side, okay? So if you're trying to push your arm and you're getting like fatigued in the arm or tingly, just let the left arm go behind your back and still keep that leaning. Breathing. And now with the rib cage arching, it's stronger than we give it credit for, right? This massive rib cage. So come on up. Okay, turn towards your bolster. There it is. Take the sand off the thigh, move the ball away, and then come into pigeon with the right knee out. If you know you're going to come into the sleeping sage pose, then when the left leg goes back, you can just go this direction, right? You can bring your right leg up on the blanket like so. I think 2 blankets is too many, but I'm trying to practice with something different just to feel it out. And then lean into it. You kind of dive down. Okay, but sometimes too many is too many, right? It's too much on the hip because it does push the hip up and brings a little bit more weight into the hip. So sometimes your hip doesn't want that pressure. So if you're in pigeon, the right knee points out. And I just feel when I lower down, yeah, I don't tend to use a bolster this way, right, in pigeon, but it's a good way because I'm not trying to, I just can relax into it. And I can just let my head turn to the side. It's definitely a different way to do this pose though. So if you're used to all the other directions, you're used to reaching, you're used to having no bolster under your chest or your forehead, you can go without it and bring your hands into a pile under your forehead. Yeah, that seems a little bit more natural, doesn't it? Okay, or you're in sleeping sage. So those of us that are in sleeping sage, remember, you could go down to 1 blanket. Right, you might go, oh, that is all the difference in the world I needed. You can put your blanket on top of the short end of your bolster. If you're like, I want a little of that pose, you can add it, okay? There's no pose police. So if you just said, I'm gonna sneak in a little sleeping sage, then go for it. So with the shoulders centering down, whichever pose you've chosen, but this one feels pretty good. Feel the shoulders release at the back space. and feel the measure of the breath. So this way you can recognize that both pigeon pose and sleeping sage have some similarities. So if you're just not in the mood for the pigeon, you sometimes do it. You can always opt for a sleeping sage and still get that weight in the hip and maybe get a little bit more twist into the core, the corgans, I like to call it, the corgans, the center piece of the body. Okay, now where you may be with your bolster, maybe forward, under your forehead or under your ribs, we're going to come on up and we're going to shift it around so that our feet will be at the wall space. So I want you to move your blanket set. So your blankets are going to be, one is going to be center of your mat, one is going to be off the mat. So just coming out of this, okay, kind of do a little crawl, dance, and then turn so that the feet are at the wall and your blanket is under the knees and your bolster is under your core. Okay, so I do want to just take a moment where we're moving into this core variation, that when you're leaning down, feel if you can get as much of this kind of mid mass of the body to help you with the arches versus your hands. I have the same feel with my hands. I effort a lot with them. So when I crawl forward, I'm going to push into my feet and reach my chest down and bring the arms to move back so they're off the floor. That's a good way to start. Just have the hands off the floor, period. Okay. Now, if your bolster's too far down on the thigh and you know it, you just don't like how it feels, it's just too close to your knees, then you move it up. So I have my bolster. Mine's a little bit too far down. Move it up. Okay. So it's going to be on the thigh lids and then maybe just kind of center at the top of the quad. It's not going to be all the way to the knee. But you know, you find what works for you. If you like the bolster lower and it brings you more support, then take that. But when you stretch the arms to reach the shoulders back, and then lower the elbows down to Sphinx pose, let your hips move a little side to side. Feel the feet push into the wall. If you're not using a wall, no problem, just let the toes hook under. But the wall can be quite a magnet to push through your feet and then to work on that reach through the pelvis. So I'm going to push into my feet. My knees are going to lift up. The feet still push. The knees are up. And then as I lift up through my sternum, so the chest is stretching forward into the back bend. Okay, now let's keep the feet pressing and then slide the hands back, palms by the sides. Feel the shoulders center back. Such good back care here. So taking good care of our back. Breathing. Feeling the arch. Okay, now lower down through the elbows once more. Knees relax this time. Let your head check in so the chin tucks in towards the chest. Okay, now door number one would be hands down, turn the hands out so they're pressing a little bit, but fingers, hands turn out. And then as I lift up through the chest, creating that upward dog, really feeling how the pelvis motions forward and down into the bolster. Okay, now come back to table, hands under shoulders, round the back into cat pose, chin to chest. Inhale, arch the spine, hips stretch back. Exhale, round the back, kind of feel how the feature of movement is through the pelvis, the back, the shoulders, the neck. And then inhale, arching. Let's go with just two more. So feel that movement as you create it through the back muscles, through the hips. Toes under, lift up the knees. Now, as you come back to a downward dog, you might decide Not for me, but you could be on your elbows and lifting up the hips, or just pass on it, right? A post pass would be like child's pose, would be a great post pass because you could still stretch the back space, but just have the knees down and apart and forehead down. Just be careful of the knee pressure. So let's say you could do the child's pose, but this is unusually uncomfortable. It's because you got a blanket pushing your knees up. So you might go minus the blanket under your knees or put it on your calves, okay? So those of us in downward facing dog, heels are lifted up on the base of the wall. You might have a baseboard, which makes it kind of nice. But with that feel of the hands pressing the floor away, reverse the flow to the brain. Take a forward fold here without weight on your hands. So you're going to walk your hands back to your feet. And be careful because you're so close to the wall, okay? Walk your feet away from the wall. I love using a blanket for this, but it's not for everybody. It is a lot of stretch. So you might bring the toes up on the blanket, so stretch the bottom of your feet. So I just walk my feet up so my heels are off the edge of the blanket. You can see that. So my seat is at the wall, my heel is down, feet are up. You can do this without the feet on the blanket like so. You can have feet flat. And then feel the sitting bones at the wall. And remember, you want to have a little bit of a slant here, because otherwise you would do a somersault. Hold your elbows and let your head relax down. Yeah, enjoy the circulation to the face, the brain. The skin cells of the face get pretty rosy on this one. So again, you can have your feet up on the blanket or the feet flat on the ground. Releasing, renewing the back line. And see if you can move your neck at all on this. Do you feel kind of stuck, like you don't have motion? It's just not a place we hang out most of the day in this direction. So you might need the arms to dangle so that your head can nod. You might need to hold the back of the legs, touch the wall. Some people try different versions for support. Take a few more breaths. It feels kind of good to let the spine get that deep stretch. Okay. Now, when you come out, if you got the blanket under your feet, you got to carefully move that away first. Okay. And then as my feet are flat on the ground, I can feel a little bit of that movement of my seat back. Okay. Then I walk the hands forward. I creep back down. Take your time. So heels move back, knees down. If you want to take a child's pose, this is what I'll recommend, is to move the blanket away from under the knees on this version. Knees are wide, feet are together, and then you lower back onto your heels. Now, if this is just way too much on the knee joint, just feels weird, then to put a blanket on your calves and try to stuff the blanket into the back of the knee. It's an amazing support for the knee. And then I hold onto the blanket so when I sit back, it brings some space into the knee. Okay, it doesn't have as much jammed up into the bones, into the joint. Okay, now give a few breaths here. If you've already been in child's pose, just repeat it for a few moments, relaxing your head down. And now coming on up to hands, knees. Let's go into side sage. Okay, so I've been waiting for this one. So come on down to your left hip and turn your bolster across the mat horizontal. And then take a blanket stack of a couple. I don't know if people use more than, it depends on the thickness of your blanket, I suppose. People can use anything here in lieu of the blanket. You can use a pillow, anything that's about the height of your bolster, but not higher. Okay, so I'm just going to stack them up, put them on the other side of the bolster, away from the wall. You could do this close to the wall as well, like your hand could reach the wall versus the block. And then put a block or two on the other side of the blankets. And then lean into that left hip to provide yourself with that balance right into the hip pressure. So we've done a lot of that today, actually. We've had seated hip pressure, leaning hip pressure, so good stuff for the hip. But when we do take the side stage, add a ball in the inner right knee. If you don't use a ball, you might have your knee to your left foot. You might just let it relax on your foot. Okay? And then if you're putting a sandbag on the side of the hip, I play with the sand side, lengthwise, but for some strange feel in my knee, this feels better when it's across. Okay? It's an interesting dynamic from the femur down to the knee. It's individualized here. But when you're leaning into the blankets, let the right arm stretch overhead and let the hand rest on the block or blocks. Feel when you're leaning in the circulation in the left side. Right? We want to let the body weight and the pressure also be a part of circulation in the shape, in the pose. So receiving your breath, featuring that in-breath, filling up the container. And then as you sweep the lungs, feel the breath relax out. If there's kind of a mystifying tightness in the neck, generally you need a little more height under your head. Just recognize that. Sometimes it feels like, well, that's too much. Just give yourself enough support under your head. Right? Don't skimp on support, because if you need to remove the height, that's easy. But if you don't have enough and your neck is tightening up more, then just add a little bit of bulk. So the jaw can relax. Feel the left arm at the bottom in the gap between the bolster and the blankets, very comfortably resting. And then with that right arm reaching, maybe lower it down so it's off the blocks. The arm opens out to the side, so you have that counter spin in the chest muscles, in the armpit chest. Kind of an interesting shoulder reach, right? The front space. And then as you let the arm relax down to your side. Okay, let's let the chest expand open. So you might find that you can just kind of nudge your sandbag off your hip if you're using it. And then as you lean to the left, you've got to kind of spin to the left before you go all the way to the back. So I go left, push down into my left elbow, then bring my elbow up on the bolster, and then add my back muscles across the bolster. I'm a fan of a block under the pelvis for this horizontal chest opener. We generally start class oftentimes like this. But if you decide, oh, I don't want the block under the pelvis, you don't have to, right? You can have a block here under the pelvis next to the bolster. Chest expands open in between sides. You could go minus the block. My teacher would say go minus the block, but it actually feels like, hey, my back is warmed up enough that I can acquire that. But just get a feeling of that reach through the back, through the arch of the spine, through the torso. Not really the hip, right? It's not a hip flexibility move. It's a back flexibility in chest and lungs. Take a few moments. If you want sand on the ribs, that's all up to you. And now feel if you can roll through the ribs to go to the second side. Hands are part of it. You know, arms and legs are part of movement, right? All the time. So I try to push into my feet, and I don't have the block under, but if you do, move it aside. You're gonna move your hips to the left, kind of wag your tail left, and then you're gonna roll into the right side. Okay. So doing what you can as if the limbs were not able to do it all. So if you keep working with your limbs doing all the spinning in the rib cage, it could end up with a sore, well, the shoulders, the back muscles. So finding what you can do with the ball if you have it under the left knee. The sand is entirely an option. Okay, it might not even be something you need on this one. You might feel just fine without the sand on the hip. But if you add that weight and then extend the left arm overhead, okay, feel where the right hip is really close to the bolster. Kind of notice, okay, is it my hip? Is it the right side of the waist that lifts up with my hip? See if you can let things kind of settle in and soften. Okay, so the head relaxes down. The shoulder is reaching with that left side into the hand. If you decide this is too much into your hand, you can open up the left arm immediately. Stay with little movements through the shoulder. Kind of jostle the tissues a little bit with movement. Or hand on the block. Let's take a few more breaths here, about 4 to 5 more. Okay, now let's add the lower half again. So we'll let the left arm open if it's reaching overhead. And then we'll kind of shift our rib cage. Remember, it's the movement of the ribs I want you to focus on. When you come out, this time, we're going to slowly lift up, move the ball to the side, go down to one blanket. Okay, taking off that other blanket. The blocks, I'm not so sure what you'll need with those right now, but you're going to need a blanket behind your bolster and a gap between the blanket and the bolster for your arms. Take a seat on your bolster. So on the very edge, right, the hip hinge, and then we'll lower back and we'll take our belt and we'll bring our legs to lift up. And I'm right on the edge of the bolster with my pelvis, right, with the tailbone. It's perfect. Okay. It couldn't be better. Okay, happy spines. Take the belt and buckle it up if it's not already in a big loop. This loop is a little bit too ambitious there, too much. Okay, so I'm going to scoop up my feet in the belt as my legs go up. And then as I move my feet out, I'm going to trust that this loop is the right size. But if it's too wide, I think it's too big, I'm just going to pull on the tail of the belt and cinch it up a little bit. Okay. Not so wild. Okay. So there's a reaction, right, with that reverse flow in the legs. And we're kind of going full circle right now to the end of class because we're there at that point. We've kind of gone towards the finale part here, which is kind of nice. We had our legs up earlier. And now as we kind of work our way down through the groins, I want you just to let the leg pits, see if they can relax. If you're not super shaky here, that's great, right? If you've gotten to this point. If you are, sometimes the jitteriness just subsides after like 30 seconds that I observe, but sometimes it's too much. So if it's really shaky day for you, whatever, it could be that kind of day, you might bend your knees and hold the belt. See if that helps. So I still have my feet in a wide stance, but I'm holding the belt. Like I can loosen it up now at this point so I can acquire the belt and just grasp on, and that can get rid of the shakes in it, okay? So let the weight of your head relax back. If this blanket's too bulky, remember you can always go lower. If you see like in the screen, like her head's kind of have a lot of round in the neck, not a good thing. I can feel that roundness kind of leading into my neck. So I'm gonna lower down. So holding. Okay, now for those of us that aren't holding onto our belt, we're gonna bend the knees, grab a hold, slide the feet together, lower the left leg down, and then with that loop, I want you just to stretch overhead. So I like to bring my thumbs in the belt, but this is another great option. Just bring your palms to prayer position. So the belt is around the between the thumb and the index finger at that thenar space, the web space, and just reach back. If that doesn't work, you can have the thumbs in, right? You don't have to have them pushed out. You can just have them together. But feeling where that reaches at the back leg, sand free. Okay, now feel where that right hip is stretched down at the top of the thigh. Slide the left foot in. Okay. So feel the left foot on the ground, feel the left thigh, just sort of engaged, not a big engagement. And then you'll just bring the left leg up into the belt. I push my right foot down in the belt, then I bring my left foot up into it. Now my right leg lowers down, sole of the foot on the ground. First, leg stretches down, second, right leg. And then I just hold and stretch back. So my head is on the blanket. It's not lifted in the air. I'm not struggling my neck here, but I'm just reaching the left side back. It's all the left side, isn't it? It's not just upper, right? It's lower. And the mid body has to go along for the ride because it's on the bolster. So it's kind of kicked up into gear. Okay, slowly guide the right foot, the bottom foot in, so the sole of the foot is on the ground, the right foot, and then bring the left foot to push straight up to verticality, straight up. Take the hands, now you're going to slide the hands, so you'll walk the right hand up to hold the belt only, left hand goes out to the left side, and then relax your right leg, relax the knee open, and the foot turns out, and let the left leg cross over to the right. Just taking this hip crossover, elevated reclining twist. The ERT series, I like this stuff. Good to mix it up. The pose potluck, we'll call it, huh? The pose potluck. Okay, now with that left leg kind of feeling straight, right? It's sort of straight-ish off of the hip. So when you bend the left knee, kind of refreshes movement in the joint to come up, and just switch over. Let the right foot go up into the belt. Take the left hand to reach if that's possible. And then right arm is open. Right leg crosses to the left. If it's a lot on the wrist, you might be able to carefully wrap the belt around the skin of the hand so you still have a little bit of reach with it, but not that press into your fingers. That can be quite useful. The gymnast wrap across the hand. Okay, but with that right leg crossing over to the left, feel the left leg relax. So for me on this side, I tend to not relax my left leg as well. So I've got to remind myself, that's why we have practice, kind of following some of the cues in this final spinal. Almost there, wherever we're going. Inside. Bend the right knee. Okay. Feel the reliance on the knee and the hip to bring that movement back to center. I know the arm is a big part. We tend to overdo that. So feel the leg reach up. Bring the left foot in. I would say move the belt off your foot and then just shake it out. Bring both legs up. Do a little bit of shake out. Okay. Grab a ball. If you can't find your ball, it's like missing right now. Don't worry about it. You're going to bend the knees. And if you've got a block or a ball, my ball's too far away, I'll just put a block between my knees. So the block is narrow. You don't want it too wide. If you got a ball, good for you. Okay. And then just let the knees go side to side. Don't stress it out. It's not worth it. Okay. So feel the hip kicks off. So we're going to be going into a bolster bench in our last pose. So I do want us to kind of get a feel for peeling up the side of the hip here. So when we lift up the rear. If I go right, my left hip goes up. If I go left, my right hip goes up. So I don't try to keep my tailbone on the bolster. Only one side of the tail. Okay. All right, and into the tails we go. So I got my blanket too low here. So I know that it's going to be better to have a quarter full. Okay, so here we go. That's pretty good. Now, with the knees in, squeezing the ball or the block. If you got a ball, it's probably a little better because you're going to get the pelvic floor a little more active that way. Because it's a responsive surface. Like there's always, it kind of pushes against you in a certain way. The block is good too. And then I'm going to remove the block, or you remove the ball, knees to chest, and then push the bolster down. And then carefully, if you need to roll to the side first, roll to the side. You're going to come up and take your blocks. Now, if it's been a while since you did bolster bench, it's really nice to do sometimes. It's a good variation. You got a couple blocks at the second or the third setting. You know, the third setting might be ideal for some of you. It's a nice little sweep through the circulation back to the heart. So then I take my blanket, but you know what? You can stack up any props. Like you could put more blankets, more pillows. It doesn't mean you have to use your blocks to go higher, right? You can add anything on top. Now, I like to have my legs to lift and my blanket sometimes under my head, but sometimes I'll put the blanket in just a comfy fold, like it's not too rolled up in a tube or anything harsh for my back. And I'll put this under my from my sacrum up my back. So you could do this. You could lie on the blanket lengthwise. It opens the chest a bit more. But if you're feeling like your back is a little sensitive, I would say no blankie under spine, right? Because it will be a little challenge in the back. Some people are up for that. If your back is just a little bit on the soreish side, go no blanket under spine, just under your head. Now you've got a sandbag, perhaps. You got an eye pillow, maybe. If you don't, you have your own eyelids to put on as eye pillows, or maybe a shirt or something. You can put something over your eyes. If you have a ton of light in your room, right, you might want to have that curtain of darkness over the eyes. All up to you. Okay, and then add that sand from heart down to belly, or across the ribs or on the shins. Okay, let the arms relax down. Let the shoulder center, find where the heart rate can slow down. So if my arms are out to the side and back, it's not going to happen. So I want the arms a little bit below the shoulders, or even farther down next to my hips, palms turned open, and simply receiving the breath. And that felt sensation of the core in motion. Feeling if there's one core, and that resistance of the sand allows you to get a deeper stretch into your lungs. So it gives you a little more inner space in that core. Relax the throat, maybe swallow consciously. If you tend to breathe with your mouth open, see if you can relax your mouth, your jaw. And it may bring you a new feel of the face, right? When you let your mouth rest, when you breathe in through the nose. And then you exhale out, maybe through the nose, right? This is a good time to practice that unless you're congested. Now, if you have an eye pillow on, ignore this instruction. If you don't, or you take it off, just let your head roll to the side. Just your head, not your whole body. And bring it back into center and to the other side. Back in the center. One more time each side. If you have an eye pillow on, just remove it so you can get a little neck motion. Then back into center. Sand goes away. Circle the feet. Feel when they're elevated. And the movement across the bottoms of the feet, the inside line of the arch. Just try to work your feet into movement. If you're really close to a wall, you might have to adapt. Feel those bones by moving, flexing. Maybe just flex and push through the ball. Maybe point, but pointing the toes can sometimes bring a cramp to the feet. Okay. So walk the feet up on the blanket bolster connection. Bring the soles of the feet together, knees apart. So we've had several versions of cobbler's pose today, right? One at the wall, one on the bolster when it was low, and one when the bolster is pretty high. So feel that convenient stretch into the adductors, the leg pits. Lots of lymph drain going on here, lots of volume, right, in this area of lymph nodes. So try to keep those stretches going when you can. And then as you bring the knees out to that width, feel as you roll to the back of the pelvis, to the tailbone, hold the legs, hug them in. And just simply acknowledge your practice. Feel the body receiving wellness, connecting, roll to a side, and let your hands bring you up. Pushing into your seat on a blanket and feeling that pressure, and then feel that elevation through the chest. Like, where do you feel elevation? I don't always feel it in my spine when I come up to sitting, but it's essential to have a good spine. So bring the hands to join, palms to palms, and feeling as you bow into your own heart, connecting to the group. Bring some warmth into the group here. Take a deep breath in. Share that warmth, that heat, and as you exhale, bowing into the peace behind.